Hi. So if you are anything like me as a crafter, you love collecting beautiful paper. When I buy it, I have every intention of using it for a particular project, and usually that comes to fruition. But there's always some leftover, right? So fast forward 20 years of my crafting in this scrapbooking, card making world, and I have a huge collection in spite of all my attempts to use and donate large quantities of scrapbooking paper. Part of the problem is that I look at my paper with a particular project in mind and I don't see what I need or what I want to complete it. So that's where today's tutorial comes in. I hope to inspire you to start looking at your papers differently and with the potential of transformation in using your stamps and coloring tools. For this first idea, I've chosen a piece of yellow paper with stripes, and then I chose three colors that have a very similar undertone, yellowy undertone. And here is the finished project. I used some coordinating paper, layered it with some white, and then two die cuts, layering die cuts, still cut from white, but that adds some nice interest. Put some ribbon behind it and added some coordinating gems. For this next one, I'm going to take this piece of paper that has just a single color on the back of it, and I'm going to go with a monochromatic theme to create just kind of a scene. But I know that I want to have a circular greeting right there, so I'm going to start with adding that circle to my paper. This will be covered up later with a die cut, but that will just give me an idea of how to shape out my stamps. So here is the finished project. This next idea is to create stripes on your pattern paper with your stamps, which you could do multicolored stripes or a single colored stripe. So this is a cut to 4 by 5.5, and so I just want to mark off, or 5 1/4, excuse me. So I'm going to mark off, let's see, I'm going to start 1/8 of an inch in and mark off every 1/2 inch. So starting right here. So I've given an 1/8 of an inch here, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, and I'll just have to erase these marks later. And then as I'm going, I could make the decision by marking off 1/2 inches. I could say, that's probably going to be too narrow. I'm going to use a wider stamp, so I'll just draw lines for the every 1 inch. So again, putting that on a 1/8 of an inch mark, and then marking every, I'm going to go ahead with every inch because I think I will need the space. But if you have a smaller stamp, or if you want it to just take up more of the space, then you would go with 1 inch or the 1/2 inch. So connecting then those lines, very light pencil mark. For not turning the camera on when I did the stamping. You can see here that I'm erasing my pencil lines. And when I did do the stamping, I did do one color at a time in sort of a checker pattern down the stripes. So here is how I have finished that card using some glimmer paper. Don't know if you can see that on camera. There it is. There, glimmer paper. And some iridescent rhinestones. I used the flower from the same stamp set, but the hello is from Beauty of Friendship. Idea number 2 is to color in the designs that are already there. So this paper happens to be all from the same pack of paper, which will be linked in my description. But I'm going to show you 4 different ways that you can color in designer series paper that already has the lined designs there for you to color. I'm using watercolor pencils and just adding a little lines to the veins of the leaves and using a blender pen to blend out that color. And I'll use 4 different colors here. I'm going with a kind of fall color scheme and doing the same process to all of the leaves on the background paper. This is a fun and relaxing way to transform your paper. This next method uses regular ink markers and a blender pen. The fun thing you can do with this kind of paper is not only color in the images, but also color in the background. After I colored in all of the portions of the paper that I wanted with the markers, I used a sponge dauber and the same color ink to just lightly color the flowers. Here is the final product. Another method you can use for coloring in your designer series paper is using alcohol ink markers. This is a really fun way to color your images. The blending effects are very nice. You can also do the background coloring or even just the background coloring, as you saw me do earlier with a regular ink marker. I had fun coloring all of these flowers and doing this background. And I hope that you will give it a try also. This next method is using your alcohol ink markers to add a splash of color to your designer series paper. This kind of takes away some of the busyness, and you can add it to plainer designs also using multiple colors, as I've done here on this pink version. I use both the light and the dark version of the alcohol ink markers. This method of transforming your designer series paper involves gesso and a mask. I'm using a sponge dauber and one of our masks right on top of the DSP, only in the center, to add a bit of layering and dimension. I'm using the same mask. I'm going to use ink and a blender brush. Again, just right in the center so that it's adding some layering and dimension. Method involves direct ink to paper. Just hold your ink pad at a slight angle and pull it down on the paper. The more angle you have, the more control of how much ink that you apply, about 30 to 45 degrees. Well, thank you for watching this tutorial if you made it all the way to the end, and I hope that it has encouraged you to look at your designer series paper differently and to start experimenting with how you can add color with stamps, ink, markers, masks, paint, you name it. I can't wait to see what you try out. And then here are the projects, the finished projects, some of which I didn't show during, and then a few extras. So here's the one where I colored just with the pink alcohol ink markers. Here's another example of masking. I used it with I did a more muted color. And then this one, I think I showed you that one. Here's one that I didn't get to in the video, with the fall leaves colored in. I love the way that turned out. Here's the finished one with the colored paper and the masking with gesso. The final project where I colored the designer series paper. And then here's the busier one with the trees where I did just the alcohol ink. Here is the swiping technique. Has a really nice vintage look to it, doesn't it? Here is the masking with the ink blending. Love the way the colors coordinate. Here is the alcohol ink coloring, just coloring a splash of color onto this metallic lined paper. Then I did some additional stamping. So you don't have to just use one method, you can always combine. And then here's a little bonus one where I did some alcohol ink coloring, but then I fussy cut it out. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I can't wait to see the ideas that you come up with.